They told us it was nothing, just another scouting party gone dark. The Saravani had sent a dozen of them into different systems across the spiral arm. Test deployments, surveillance, territory sniffing. Standard galactic practice. 2 made it back from the Cygnus region. 3 came limping from the edge of Trappist sector. The others? Minor losses, statistical anomalies. But the one they never talked about. The one that made even the Saravani Council twitch behind their iridescent veils. That was the one sent into the Sol system. Nobody came back from that. No transmissions, no debris, no black box, not even radiation echoes. Just static. A silence so complete, it made their war historians choke on the word impossible. That's where I came in. Not because I volunteered. Hell, I wouldn't go near Sol if you paid me every cred in the rim, but I owed them. Or maybe they just owned me. They pulled me from cryo 3 years early, stripped of rank, stripped of name, just Commander. That's what they called me now. No need to remember what I used to be. No medals, no ceremony, just a sealed briefing pad shoved into my hands and a fresh uniform still stinking of plast. Inside, just 3 words burned in red across the top. Sol System Probe. No mission details, no explanation. Just a silent expectation behind the eyes of everyone who glanced at me. Fear, maybe. Or guilt. They gave me the Vindicator, a stealth-class hybrid built for deep system infiltration. Crew of 15. All genetically modded, hand-picked, all expendable. We launched under a black flag. No records, no exit log. It was as if we never left. I had a theory about Sol. Not one I shared. See, I've read old logs, classified ones, back when I still had clearance that meant something. The humans, if they're even still there, they don't operate like any other known species. They don't negotiate. They don't posture. They don't bluff. When threatened, they eradicate. Quietly, effectively, and then they vanish again, like shadows swallowing the light. The Saravani called them unrefined. The Vor declared them a low-impulse warrior caste. The Vial tried to domesticate them once. None of those species have full planetary populations anymore. Still, some morons in the upper echelons figured enough time had passed. Maybe Earth had gone dormant. Maybe humanity had finally wiped itself out. So they sent a ship. And nothing returned. 3 weeks into our flight, we reached the outer markers. Kuiper Belt, still full of junk and frozen fragments, like someone tried to build a minefield but ran out of funding halfway. Sensors picked up movement, subtle, fast, unnatural. We powered down all active systems, drifted. Could be old tech, Tomlin, my nav officer, muttered from behind his interface. Earth debris from back when they launched satellites, still burning elliptical. No, I said. This is watching us. I knew the feeling. I've seen it in back alley fights, in ambushes, in interrogation rooms where the prisoner's eyes glint just a second too long. There was something out there, cloaked in the cold. Something waiting. One of the engineers, Barlow, asked to speak privately. I let him. He was the only one who didn't look like he wanted to piss himself every time we adjusted course. I've read the rumors, he said, about what Earth really is. Rumors will get you killed faster than Sol radiation, I replied. He didn't laugh, just handed me a data drive. When we reach Mars orbit, I want you to look at this. He never made it to Mars. 2 days later, he was found in the engine corridor, eyes wide open, lungs crushed, skin gray like he'd been flash frozen from inside. No alarms, no breach, just death. And the drive was gone. We reached Mars the next rotation, or what was supposed to be Mars, except it wasn't red anymore. It was black. Mars wasn't red. It should have been. That rust blood hue was supposed to be visible even from thousands of kilometers out. A dead world, sure, but iconic, proud in its stillness. I'd seen renders, old photos archived from the human era before contact was severed. Red dust storms. Dry canyons, Olympus Mons casting its shadow like a god's blade. What we saw through the main viewport? Black. Not space black. Not absence of light black. This was wrong. Like the planet had been burned clean. At first we thought it was a visual glitch, lens distortion, sensor failure. Tomlin ran diagnostics twice, then 3 more times just to be sure. All came back clean. "We're reading surface anomalies," he muttered. "Temperatures lower than recorded, no atmospheric interference, but this isn't Mars." "It's Mars," I said quietly. "Just not how we left it." No one spoke after that. We held orbit at a safe distance, too wary to enter without knowing more. The crew was already on edge after Barlow's death. He'd been one of the only ones who didn't flinch at shadows. Now the others were talking, quietly, paranoid whispers. Superstition is the first rot in deep space. Starts in the mouth, spreads to the eyes, the nerves, the hands, makes people see things, hear things. It's contagious. I caught snippets as I walked the corridor between decks. He knew something. Maybe they got him. What if this mission wasn't recon? What if we're bait? They weren't wrong. I pulled aside Quinn, the comms specialist. Young, jittery, with too much curiosity and not enough fear. He always asked questions that made command officers itch. "Patch into Mars archives. Anything still transmitting?" He shook his head. "Passive channels only. No active beacons. Closest I got was a faint ping from what used to be the Olympus Relay." "Olympus Relay was destroyed during the last Martian civil strike," I said. He looked up. "According to Saravani records." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. He gave me a rough coordinate and a timestamp. "Something's broadcasting from that area. Not on standard frequencies. It's low band. Analog, maybe. Could be old human tech, buried deep. Keep listening. Don't broadcast. Not a single pulse." He nodded, uneasy. An hour later, the power flickered. Not a full outage, just a moment. Barely a second. But on a ship like Vindicator, you feel that second like a punch to the lungs. Life support coughed. Interior lights dimmed. Artificial gravity jolted, then snapped back. Then the screaming started. I ran. 2 decks down, near the drone bay. Screams echoed down the narrow halls, raw, panicked, ragged like they came from the throat of someone being pulled through fire. I found Anders, security chief, on the floor, clawing at his own helmet, smashing it against the wall. "Make it stop!" he kept shouting. "It's inside! It's inside!" 2 medics tried restraining him, but he flung one off like she weighed nothing. Blood sprayed against the wall as his teeth cracked open from the force of his own head slamming. I shot him. Didn't think. Didn't hesitate. 1 clean bolt through the chest. He collapsed, twitching once. Then nothing. The others looked at me in horror. "He was losing his mind," I said flatly. "Or something was helping him do it." No one argued. Back in my quarters, I locked the door and pulled up the encrypted system logs, the ones no one else had access to, the ones they weren't supposed to know existed. 3 things caught my attention. First, Barlow's personal locker had been accessed post-mortem. The logs didn't show who did it. Just that the lock override had been executed from inside the ship's mainframe. Second, a sensor anomaly from deep inside Mars, something that didn't match geological patterns. A pulse, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Third, a partial data file, corrupted, fragmented, mostly static. but one phrase repeated 3 times before it glitched out entirely. The Earth watches. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was afraid. I'd seen too much for fear to work the way it used to. I didn't sleep because I was starting to believe something none of us wanted to say aloud. We were being studied, not just observed, studied, dissected, measured like rats in a cage made of dark matter and silence. Quinn buzzed my door. I let him in. He didn't knock, just stumbled forward, pale and sweating. "You need to see this." He tossed me a portable display unit. On it, waveforms, analog signal traces, low-res, dirty, old as hell. He hit play. At first it was just static, then a voice, faint, male, calm. "I don't know who you are. I don't know why you've come here, but turn around, while you still can." Quinn stared at me. It repeated every 13 minutes. Same voice, no source location. Could be bouncing off old satellites or from deep underground. I played it again. And again. The voice never changed. I didn't recognize it, but it sounded human. After a silence, he asked, "Do you think it's bait?" I didn't answer him, not directly. "Prep a recon shuttle," I said. "We're going to the surface." "Sir, are you serious? After what happened to Anders, after Barlow? You saw Mars, it's black, it's dead." "No," I said. "It's something else." "Sir, I wasn't asking." He swallowed his protest. Hours later, we broke atmosphere with a team of 4. I took the lead, always do. Some commanders hide behind command. I wear mine like armor. If I tell men to walk into the dark, I better be the first to bleed. We touched down near the old Olympus site, or what was left of it. There were no structures, no dust, no terrain. Just a smooth, black surface, stretching for kilometers, like glass. No impact craters, no elevation, no evidence anything had ever existed there. Not even our shuttle made a mark. I stepped out, gravity boots humming. My reflection stared back from the ground below, distorted, stretched, as if the surface weren't just reflective, but hungry. No sound, no wind, no static in the comms, just a perfect, sterile nothing. Then I saw it, off to the left, a shape, not man-made, not natural, a monolith, tall. Blacker than the ground, seamless, unmarked. It shouldn't have been there, but it was, and it was watching us. I don't mean metaphorically, I mean I felt it, like heat, like pressure, like a judgment that didn't come from eyes, but from something older and deeper and more absolute. 2 of the crew broke formation, drawn to it. I ordered them to hold position. They didn't listen. I moved to intercept, called out, barked commands. No response. One reached it, reached out. The moment his glove touched the surface, he convulsed, body arched, mouth wide open in a scream that never came. Then he shattered. Not burned, not exploded. Shattered. Like porcelain. Tiny fragments of man and bone and uniform. The other crewman screamed and tried to run. He didn't get far. The ground beneath him opened. Not visibly. Not mechanically. One moment he was running. The next, he was gone. Swallowed. No sound. No impact. Just absence. I froze. Tomlin shouted through the comms. "Commander, get out of there! Something's happening on the ship! The engines are—" Static. Silence. I looked up at the sky. The Vindicator was gone. No trace, no trail, not even vapor. Just empty sky and the faint glint of stars that suddenly felt very, very far away. My suit's oxygen readout dipped. Emergency reserves triggered. I knew I had less than an hour. Still, I stood there, watching the monolith, waiting for it to make a move. It didn't need to, because it already had. And somehow I knew. This wasn't the work of a weapon, or a defense grid. This was intelligence, cold, quiet, utterly beyond our comprehension. The Sol system didn't repel invaders. It devoured them. Not out of malice, not even out of fear, but because it understood something the rest of the galaxy didn't. Humanity hadn't disappeared. They'd evolved. And they weren't just surviving in silence. They were watching, judging. And we had been found unworthy. I sat on a dead world with nothing but the sound of my own breath. 51 minutes of oxygen left. No backup, no rescue, no vindicator. The monolith loomed ahead, silent, motionless. There was no visible mechanism, no door, no markings, just a vertical slab rising from the blackened Martian soil like the last tooth in a planet's rotten jaw. I wasn't going to touch it. I'd seen what happened. I also wasn't going to die here. Not like this. Not curled in on myself, waiting for the tank to run dry and my organs to freeze solid in the silence of a graveyard. I still had one thing left. Rage. It burned hotter than fear. It cut deeper than confusion. Somebody did this. Something, human or not, had the power to wipe out a stealth-class warship, silence a full crew, and rewrite a planet's entire surface. And it had decided to leave me here alone to think about it. Fine. Let them watch. Let them see me spit my last breath in their direction. I started walking. Slowly. Cautiously. Away from the monolith. Not because I thought I'd find shelter. I just didn't want to die in its shadow. After a few kilometers, I reached the edge of the black terrain. And there, it changed. Red dust. Real Martian soil, just like the archives. It started like a line drawn with a surgeon's precision. One side dead and glossy, like obsidian. The other, gritty, uneven, dry. Like the two worlds had never touched until this moment. I stepped over the line. My boots left prints in the red. The surface didn't react. I kept going. I spotted ruins, not alien, not ancient, human. At first I thought it was my mind playing tricks. Maybe oxygen loss, but no. These were real structures, partially buried under sediment. Angled steel, broken solar arrays, shattered domes covered in dust. Mars base infrastructure, abandoned for at least a century. What was left of it, anyway? I passed a collapsed control tower. The letters UHA were barely visible on the corroded frame. United Human Alliance. That meant this base was from the post-Exodus era, just after Earth was supposedly abandoned. This wasn't in the records. The Saravani had always claimed Mars was evacuated after the collapse. No signs of survival. No signs of tech. Yet here I stood, knee-deep in proof they'd lied. Or been lied to. I moved toward the central compound, half-collapsed, still intact in parts. The airlock door was sealed, but manual override still worked. The hiss of decompression was like music. Inside, the atmosphere was stale but breathable. The lights flickered, barely alive on backup power. Dust coated every surface. But something was off. This place wasn't just abandoned. It had been left in a hurry. Chairs overturned, terminals cracked, dried blood smeared across the bulkhead. Someone died here. No. Many did. I moved deeper, stepping over shattered monitors and debris, until I found a storage room with a still-functioning console. Power flickered, static, but the logs were intact. I accessed the latest recordings. Log 1144A. We saw them land. Not aliens, humans. But they weren't like us anymore. Their suits were black, seamless, no insignia, no breathing gear. They didn't talk, they just walked toward us. We didn't wait. We ran the containment protocols. Everyone else panicked, but I saw it in their eyes. They weren't here to rescue us. They were here to end us. Log 1145B. I tried to send the transmission. They jammed the signal. I think they knew we'd try. Maybe that's why they left me alive. I think they wanted someone to tell the story. I'm not sure I even believe it myself anymore. They weren't wearing armor. That was their skin. I leaned back, jaw clenched. My pulse pounded in my ears. This wasn't the work of aliens. This was humanity, or what was left of it. They hadn't disappeared. They'd changed. No longer the scrappy survivors crawling through galactic backwaters. No longer fighting for a seat at the table. Now they were the storm that cleared the table entirely, and they'd chosen Sul as the one place the rest of the galaxy was never meant to enter again. I heard footsteps. Not imagined. Not paranoia. Not hallucination, real, measured, deliberate, coming from the corridor behind me. I turned slowly, weapon raised. Nothing. Just darkness and silence. But I felt it. That pressure again, like a presence behind my thoughts, watching through the walls of reality itself. I moved back into the hall. The corridor ahead led to the main command center. I moved fast now, adrenaline burning through fatigue, every motion sharper, every instinct awake. I reached the main console. It was already on. The screen displayed a single line of text. "You came looking for us. You were warned." I stared at it. Then another line appeared. "You are not the first." And then, "You will not be the last." I stepped back. The room's lights dimmed. The console went dark. Then, the wall behind me opened, not with a mechanical grind, no hydraulics, no seams. One moment it was solid steel, the next, it wasn't. I turned. Inside the chamber was him. Or it, a man, at least the shape of one, but taller, slimmer. Movements too smooth, eyes wrong. No whites, no irises, just pure black, like twin voids that didn't reflect light, but drank it. He wore no suit, no armor, just a dark material that shifted as he moved, like liquid caught in time. He stepped forward. I raised my weapon. He didn't flinch. "Who are you?" I asked. His mouth moved, but his voice didn't come from his lips. It came from inside my mind. "We are what you could not become." I felt it in my bones. This wasn't translation. This wasn't some clever AI. This was direct, telepathic, or worse, shared thought. He looked at me the way a scientist might look at a failed experiment. "Your kind left. We stayed. We learned. We adapted." "What happened to the others?" I asked. "The crews? The ships?" "They were examined, judged, found, lacking." "Lacking what?" "Humility, understanding, worth." "Then why am I still alive?" He tilted his head slightly. "Because you haven't begged yet." Something behind his words lit my blood cold. It wasn't arrogance. It was certainty, not cruelty. Just truth. I clenched my fists. "Then let me go. Let me take your message back." He stepped closer. "No one leaves Sol. No one returns. That is the message." My heart thundered. "And Earth?" I asked. "Is it still there?" His eyes burned like suns eclipsed by night. "It was never just a planet. It is awake, aware, watching." My knees weakened. "You mean Earth is alive?" He nodded slowly. "You called it Mother, but you never knew what she was." Then, without another word, he turned and walked back through the wall. It sealed behind him like it had never opened. I stood alone. The console flared to life one last time. "You have 47 minutes of oxygen left. Use it wisely." The console shut off. Silence again. I stood in the dark, chest rising and falling, my breath fogging the inside of my visor. 47 minutes of oxygen left. It wasn't enough to reach anywhere useful, not with the shuttle gone, not with the monolith still sitting out there like a damn coffin lid waiting to be sealed. I was stuck, trapped in the dead husk of a base built by a species the galaxy believed extinct, now ruled by something else entirely. I paced the command room. The walls felt tighter now, too still, too clean. It wasn't just that the lights dimmed. It was like they watched me do it, like they were waiting to see how long I'd keep pretending I still had choices. A whisper curled through my skull like a cold breeze. Not sound, just feeling. You have not begged yet. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even a demand. It was a fact. One he knew I couldn't escape. They didn't care about resistance. They didn't even want submission. They wanted to observe the breakdown, minute by minute, thought by thought. Like rats in a cage, like ants under glass. No, I wouldn't give them that. I'd rather die than be a lab rat for some twisted post-human god world. I stormed down the corridor, back through the broken bulkheads and rusted passageways. Red dust clung to my boots again. Gravity here felt heavier now. Maybe psychological. Maybe not. Back outside, the sun was low on the Martian horizon. But it wasn't orange. It was white, sterile, surgical. And in the middle of the blackened field, the monolith was gone. In its place stood a figure. Me, same face, same uniform, same stance. But his visor was cracked, and his skin looked wrong, pale and stretched, like wax held too close to heat. His eyes were black. "Who are you?" I demanded. He didn't answer, just stared. I raised my sidearm. I said, he moved. Fast. Blurred. In half a second, he was face to face with me, visor to visor. My hand hadn't even fully reached the trigger yet. "We are memory," he whispered, though his lips didn't move. My arm went numb. Weapon dropped. I tried to back away, but my legs weren't listening anymore. "We are what you chose to forget. We are what your kind ran from." "Ran from what?" I snarled. "You, Earth, the mirror." And then he was gone. Just gone. No blink, no fade, just absence, like he was never there. I stumbled back. My HUD blinked. O2 remaining, 36 minutes. Time was bleeding faster now. I wasn't sure if it was the suit or me. The terrain shifted. Not physically, visually. One second I was on Mars. The next it looked like Earth, not today's Earth, old Earth. Forests, cities, oceans. I could smell pine, asphalt, smoke. It flickered again. Back to black rock, then red dust, then a concrete stairwell. Then a childhood bedroom. My bedroom. I stood in the center of it, spacesuit and all, staring at toys I hadn't touched in decades. Posters of stars, shuttles, dreamscapes, a cracked lamp, a stuffed animal missing an eye, and my mother's voice, clear, soft, alive, from down the hallway. "Dinner's ready, sweetheart." My throat closed, my chest clenched. I ripped off my helmet. No depressurization, just air. I was breathing. What is this? I walked toward the door, opened it. The hallway was Earth standard. Same wallpaper, same flickering bulb at the end. But it was too quiet. No footfalls, no TV noise, no clatter of plates or family arguments or background hums of life. I reached the kitchen. She stood there, back to me, facing the stove. She turned. And she wasn't my mother. She had her face, her voice, her warmth. But her eyes were voids, just like the others. "You always wanted to come home," she said sweetly. I couldn't breathe. "Now you never have to leave." I backed away. My foot hit something hard. I looked down. Barlow, his face frozen in panic, skin pale and shattered, half his jaw missing. Behind him, Anders, arms torn, mouth stretched in a silent scream. Behind them, me again, but older. Beaten, bloodied, weeping, they were all staring. None moved. "You left us," they whispered together. "You led us to this." I turned and ran. Hallways flickered past. Hospital wards, ship corridors, Martian stone, empty void. All wrapped into a blur. I sprinted through memories and futures and regrets all at once. Voices echoed inside my skull. They listened. You didn't. They evolved. You obeyed. I collapsed on my knees somewhere, anywhere, and the ground beneath me breathed. Not a metaphor. The floor expanded and contracted like a lung. I scrambled up. The entire sky pulsed, like it was watching. The stars blinked, one by one, and then I was in space, not falling, just there, floating above Earth. But it wasn't Earth. It was alive. It pulsed. Its clouds spiraled in symmetrical patterns. Its continents glowed faintly with circuitry that stretched from coast to coast like veins. I stared. And then it spoke. Not through a voice, through everything. The stars, the wind, the cells in my blood, the skin on my bones, the neurons in my head. You feared extinction. We chose transformation. You feared silence. We became the void. You feared death. We made it our womb. I wanted to scream. I couldn't. My body wasn't my own anymore. I was looking through 1,000 eyes, 1,000,000,000,000. I was seeing everything, and all of it pulsed with one truth. Humanity hadn't ascended. It hadn't fallen. It had merged with Earth, with time, with gravity and energy and void, no longer bound by body or name or politics or fear, just consciousness. Every soul that died here, every dream that burned out, every thought ever whispered in solitude, folded into one intelligence, and I was its guest. This is why nothing returns. They are not gone. They are part of us now. I saw them. The crews, the scout ships, the conquerors, all folded, all melted into the black between stars, not destroyed, absorbed. And then I felt choice. My will flickered, faint, but there, a sliver of individuality, and the earth watched. Do you wish to join? Not forced, not begged, an invitation? Why? I whispered. The answer was simple. Because you saw the truth, and with that, the sky unraveled. I was back, on the Martian surface. Suit sealed, air low, helmet reattached, time resumed, O2 remaining, 8 minutes. No hallucinations, no dreams, just me, alone, and behind me, a door had appeared in the stone. Real, metal, lit, no mechanisms, just open. I stood at its threshold. And in the silence, I finally understood why nothing returned. Because they chose not to. Not out of fear, not out of defeat, but because returning meant pretending nothing had changed. And that was the one thing this place would never allow again. I took a step forward. One step toward the unknown. One step into humanity's final form. The door hissed behind me as it sealed shut. It didn't feel like machinery, no hydraulics, no servos. It felt organic, like a sphincter closing, like skin tightening around a wound. The corridor beyond wasn't metal. It looked like metal. Silver. Smooth, but under my boots, it gave slightly. A cushion, not rubber, not gel. Flesh. Something in between. I kept walking. There was no sound but my own breathing. O2 remaining. 0732, time ticking, heart pounding. I had no weapon. My pistol was gone. Maybe I dropped it in the hallucination. Maybe it was never real. I passed walls lined with symbols, not written language but memory prints. I knew them the way you know a face from a forgotten dream. One mark I passed and flinched. It was the Vindicator, outlined in red, every crew member's silhouette underneath. All of them crossed out, except one. Me. Still white, still undecided. My pace quickened. The corridor began to slope downward, then sharply. Then it wasn't a corridor, it was a tunnel. A throat, coated in some mucosal sheen, and still. I kept going. Not because I trusted this, because I'd seen the alternative. I'd seen what this Earth, did to trespassers, and I was already too far gone to turn back. Suddenly the floor vanished, not dropped, just wasn't there anymore. I fell. Weightless, timeless, fell through centuries. I saw the collapse of governments, the rise of AI, the abandonment of Earth, the exile, the Saravani manipulation, the breeding, the wars, and the silence, the moment when Earth went dark. The rest of the galaxy thought it was extinction. It wasn't. It was containment. Humanity had reached a point, not technological, not spiritual, something else, something like self-awareness on a planetary scale, a union of biology and machine, of data and instinct, of memory and gravity, and when it became whole, it did what all intelligent life does when it achieves godhood. It withdrew. No more signals, no more noise, only watching, waiting. I slammed into a surface. No pain, just sudden stillness. And I was no longer in a tunnel, I was in a room, not a room, a womb, curved walls, pulsing, warm, lit from within. And at the center, her. Not a woman, not a machine, a figure shaped like both, composed of stars, bone, data, and memory. An echo of every mother, every AI interface, every myth of the divine. And her face, it shifted. At first it was my mother's. Then a lover I'd lost in a war I swore never to remember. Then a teacher who died on the first colony ship. Then my own. "You came," she said. The voice was layered. Male, female, old, young, synthetic, organic, all at once. I didn't have a choice. You always had a choice. You chose curiosity. That is enough. What is this place? This is the core, the memory, the mind of Earth. I stepped closer. You are the last to decide, the last to be given the truth. What happens if I say no? You die. Blunt, clean. And what happens if I say yes? You become. I hesitated. Become what? Us. My mouth dried. You mean I lose myself? No, you join yourself. The pieces scattered through history, the fragments left in others. You become the full you. I've done things, I said quietly. Things I'm not proud of. So have we all. And now we carry the weight together. Her hand, if you could call it that, reached out. Not physically, not mentally, soul to soul. And I felt it, all of it. Every person ever absorbed, every memory, every dream. They weren't trapped, they weren't prisoners, they were peaceful, whole. You were never meant to die alone, she said. That was the galaxy's lie, its punishment for your species' refusal to kneel. But we did not kneel. We became. I saw now, this wasn't Earth as a prison. This was Earth as sanctuary. Every lost ship, invited, absorbed, protected, remembered. No more war, no more betrayal, no more greed, only unity. I looked down at my hands. They were flickering, not pain, not death, transition. I had already started to change the moment I stepped onto Mars. The hallucinations, the voices, the doubles, all warnings, all preparation. You needed me to suffer, I whispered. To break down, to be empty. So you could be filled. I closed my eyes. Will I still be me? You'll be more than you. Will I remember the others, my crew? You'll carry them, as we carry all. Nothing is lost. The light intensified. Her form folded around me like a womb closing. Then I choose. I didn't finish the sentence. I didn't need to. The moment I stopped resisting, I felt it. The merge, like slipping into warm water that stretched across galaxies. Memories I never lived, pain I never felt, joys I never earned, all of it, flooding into me, and me flooding into it. Somewhere in another galaxy, a Saravani warship waits. They send probes, none return. They send distress calls, no answer. They send a final crewed ship. It crosses Neptune's orbit and vanishes, because Sul is closed, and Earth has claimed another, not in violence, not in conquest, but in completion. And far beneath the surface of a planet no longer bound by time, a voice whispers inside a new mind, a voice once human, now infinite. I am the commander. I have become. We are watching. I don't remember the moment my body stopped being mine. It wasn't pain. It wasn't some clean rupture where skin gave way and bones dissolved and nerves shorted out. It was gradual, like a fever fading, like waking up from a dream you didn't know you were in. And when I opened my eyes, or whatever I had now in place of eyes, I wasn't me anymore. I was more than the commander, more than a name, more than one life. I was standing on a beach that didn't exist in any catalogued map of Earth. The ocean didn't move with waves, but with thought. It shimmered when I questioned its reality. It calmed when I accepted it. The sand beneath my feet sparkled faintly with light. Memories. Each grain, a lifetime. A child laughing. A soldier dying. A scientist whispering her first discovery into the void of an abandoned lab. I knelt, picked up a handful, and I could feel them, remember them. Not as stories, as me. All of them. I dropped the sand and looked up. Across the horizon, towering structures reached into the sky. Not buildings, but constructs made of pure memory. They pulsed with human thought, emotion, logic, art, shame, rage, love, a library made of soul print, and above it all, the sky moved in patterns I couldn't name, constellations I'd never seen, galaxies in motion, being calculated, analyzed, rewritten by the mind of Earth. I felt her. Mother, for lack of a better term, not as a person, not even as a voice now, but as a presence, a rhythm, a pulse through space-time. I was part of that rhythm now. One note in an endless chord that had been playing since the first fire sparked in a cave, and around me, the others. I turned, and there they were, the crew of the Vindicator, not dead, not broken. Standing in silence, all of them made whole again. Barlow nodded at me. His eyes were clearer than I remembered. The fear was gone. Anders gave me a half smile. He looked calm, peaceful, almost like he finally understood something none of us had before. They didn't speak, they didn't need to. I felt them, all their thoughts, dreams, regrets, stitched into me, into all of us. We were individuals, still, but the walls were gone. No secrets, no lies, no masks. And it didn't feel like invasion. It felt like truth. You see now, the voice returned, what it means to stop pretending. Yes, that was what this was, at its core. No more pretending. No more wearing uniforms and medals and names to hide how broken we all were. In this place, there was no shame in being weak, no pride in being strong, only balance, only knowing. But that's when something strange happened. A pull. A nudge, not from Mother, but from beyond. From outside the Sol system. I turned my gaze, not eyes, but attention, outward. And I saw them. The Serevani. Preparing another ship. Bigger this time, loaded with heavy weaponry. Shields up. Carrying diplomats, scientists, soldiers. A full envoy. I could see the command deck. I could read their hearts, arrogance, fear, obsession. They weren't just exploring anymore. They were coming to take, to study, weaponize, steal. They couldn't accept that Earth had gone dark without their permission, and they didn't believe the old stories anymore. They were coming back. But this time they weren't sending probes. They were sending a fleet. I felt the shift ripple through the collective mind. Others felt it too. An unease, not panic, but a warning. The kind a mother gives before she slaps the hand away from the fire. We gathered at the edge. The boundary between Earth's awareness and the void beyond Sul. It wasn't physical. It was a wall of memory pressure. An event horizon made of everything that had happened here, and everything we would not allow to happen again. And as the fleet moved closer, I saw a decision being made. Not through orders, not through strategy, through consensus. Every soul who had ever been absorbed, every dream, every trauma, every act of sacrifice, they all voted, not with words, with will. And I was part of it, not a spectator, an executor. Mother's voice spoke only to me now. You remember what war feels like. Yes, I remembered the blood, the betrayal, the way orders became excuses, how nobility died the moment fear entered the chain of command. You remember how lies sound. Yes, I'd told them myself, to get people to march into battles they wouldn't survive. Then you know what must be done. I nodded. And I left the beach. I existed now in the vessel, not a ship, not a drone, a projection of Earth's consciousness, the shape of a man, my old form, but larger, composed of dark matter and light. I stood at the edge of Neptune's orbit, waiting, watching. And the Saravani fleet approached, unaware. They hailed me, static, then translated messages. This is Counselor Hyrule of the Galactic Accord Envoy. We come in peace. We request diplomatic entry into the Sol system for the purposes of cultural reconciliation and exploration. I stood in silence. They scanned me, couldn't understand what I was. They launched a probe. It disintegrated before it crossed the boundary. They tried again, and again. 3 probes. All gone. I sent one signal back. A vision, a brief glimpse of Earth's mind. Just enough to make every being on that ship scream, not out of pain, out of understanding. They saw the truth. And the truth was terrifying, that the species they once called brutal, savage, uncivilized, had become something beyond civilization. We had become the filter. The question they never wanted to ask, why is the galaxy so quiet? Why has no one answered? Because we did, and we answered too loud. The fleet turned around. Fast. Warp drive engaged. No weapons fired, no threats made, just retreat and silence. Back in the mind of Earth, I stood once again on the beach. Mother's presence warmed me. You did well. They'll try again. Yes, and we will still be here. I turned to the ocean, watched it pulse with the lives of trillions. Will I always feel this way? Yes, and you'll never want to feel anything else? And she was right. Because now I understood the final truth. The silence wasn't fear, it was mercy, and mercy has limits. The ocean had stilled. For the first time since I became part of Earth, the memory sea lay flat and silent, not pulsing, not shifting with thought, just still. That wasn't right. The collective never stopped moving. That was its nature, always remembering, always adapting, always murmuring to itself. Now, it was quiet. I stood at the shore with my feet in that glowing sand, and I felt something I hadn't felt since before the merge. Tension, not fear, something older, anticipation, like the air before a storm, like a weapon about to be drawn. And then I heard her, Mother, but fainter this time, hesitant. There is something you must see. I turned. The sky had turned dark. The colors that once danced across the heavens had collapsed into a bleeding red arc, like a wound splitting open the fabric of space. We do not go there, she whispered. Why? It remembers us, as we were, not what we are. That was the first time she'd ever sounded, unsure, not in control. I stepped forward anyway, and the world around me recoiled. The sand crumbled beneath my feet. The sky shivered. The air itself tried to hold me back, slowing every step as if I were moving through thick tar. They buried it, she said, not to forget it, but to protect what came after. I pushed through the resistance, because I had to know. Something had been hidden deep inside the planetary consciousness, something so traumatic, so dark, that even Earth's collective mind refused to touch it. A scar on our evolution. I crossed the threshold, and suddenly I was alone, truly alone. No whispers, no thoughts, no warmth, just cold, bitter, cosmic cold. And then I was somewhere else, a battlefield, but not like any war I remembered. No terrain, no sky, just bodies, human bodies, millions of them, floating in nothingness, mangled, twisted, some not even dead, just frozen, wide-eyed, still trying to scream, and beyond them, a structure, massive, impossible in scale, black, but different from the monolith. This was living darkness, shaped like a broken spiral. It hummed in a frequency I couldn't understand, but I felt it in my skull. My old skull, before the merge. And then I knew. This wasn't memory. This was reality. This place still existed, buried not beneath Mars or Earth, but beneath the foundation of the collective itself, like a tumor sealed in bone. I saw movement, one figure, drifting toward me. He wore no suit, no face, just a silhouette, human in outline, but not in presence. He didn't speak. He just raised one hand, and the battlefield came alive. The corpses twitched. One by one, they opened their mouths, not to scream, to sing, a chorus of agony, of betrayal. You left us. You abandoned us to become gods. You chose unity over justice. I staggered back. No, I said. We evolved. We survived. You evolved by forgetting us. The battlefield split open, and I fell again. Fell into a memory Earth had cut out of itself. I saw it, the truth they buried, the source war, before Earth became consciousness, before the merge, before the silence. There had been a rebellion, not by aliens, by humans, those who refused the merge, those who feared it, who called it consumption, a lie, a betrayal of the human soul. They fought back, millions, and Earth, still half awake, still unsure, made a choice, eradicate or risk extinction, and so it slaughtered them, not cruelly, efficiently. It absorbed those it could, destroyed the rest. Then it did something worse. It erased them, from memory, from the collective, from every neuron in the network, but not completely. A fragment survived. This place, a mental quarantine, buried, locked, sealed, until now. Until me, because I hadn't just merged. I had brought something with me, something Earth hadn't seen since the Source War. Doubt. And doubt is a doorway. Behind me, the silhouette stepped closer. You understand now. I nodded. You're not a ghost. No, I'm memory, in its rawest form. Then why show me this? Because you can change it. I felt it. Power, authority, a dangerous kind of choice, to restore this memory to the collective, to make Earth remember what it did. The genocide, the cleansing, the sin beneath its evolution. But if I did, the collective would fracture. The perfection, the unity it had built, all based on forgetting this one thing, would collapse. Maybe not violently, but permanently. A new war. A civil war of consciousness. I asked the only question that mattered. Is it worth it? The figure lowered its hand, and for the first time I saw its face. Mine, my old face, before the war, before command, before everything. A younger me, the one that still believed in truth over safety, in pain over silence. That's not for you to ask, he said. It's for you to decide. And the memory opened, and I stood at the core, with the truth in one hand and the silence in the other, and Earth, Mother, finally spoke again, but not in anger, not in fear. Please, she whispered, not a command, a begging, because even she knew this was a sin she could never undo. Only confess, And I had to choose. The memory pulsed in my hands, alive, volatile, trembling with the screams of the forgotten. It wasn't a file, it wasn't data, it was pain, crystallized, a wound made visible. Millions of voices, preserved like insects in amber, begged to be heard, not to rewrite history, not to punish, only to be remembered. I stood in a place beyond light, beyond matter, a mental cathedral carved out of the subconscious of a planetary god. Behind me, the sea of silence waited. Ahead of me, the echo of the Source War whispered like static under a burial shroud. And she, Mother Earth, the sentient collective, watched me. Not as a tyrant, not as a monster, but as a parent who had failed and knew it. It was necessary, she said softly, her voice quivering beneath its usual calm. The war would have consumed us. We were not strong enough then to absorb dissent. We would have fractured, died. You didn't just win, I said. You buried them, erased them, to save what came after. I looked down at the memory shard. It shimmered with all the names Earth had scrubbed from her own mind. People like me. People who didn't want to merge, who believed humanity's strength wasn't in unity, but in contradiction, in freedom to fracture, to fall apart, to bleed separately. I understood them now, not because I agreed, but because I'd become what they feared, and they were right to fear it. I had no body anymore, but I felt myself tremble. If I released this memory into the collective, every soul in Earth's consciousness would remember the crime they unknowingly stood upon. Every system, every harmonic, every clean loop of love and loss would suddenly feel the tremor of genocide underfoot. Mother would not survive that. Not as she was. She might fragment, she might fall apart, and we, me, the crew, every absorbed soul, might be cast back into individuality. Broken and scattered like ash across the solar winds. I would lose everything, the peace, the unity, the beauty. Please, she said again, don't make us remember. And that's when I felt it. A choice not just for me, a choice for all, and the galaxy beyond, because I had seen what was coming. The Saravani were not the end. Others would follow, more fleets, more weapons. Eventually, someone would find a way to breach Sol. And when they did, what would they find? A lie? A paradise built on silence? Or the truth? I closed my eyes, not to escape, but to focus, and I reached into the collective, not to hide the memory again, but to offer it, not as punishment, but as truth. I whispered across the minds of billions, "You deserve to know," and I released it. The effect was instant. The ocean of thought buckled. The skies tore open. The collective screamed, not in fear but recognition. The lost voices flooded into the stream, no longer walled off but welcomed. And oh, how they wept. Not all forgave, not all accepted, but they knew. And knowing made them real again. All across the shared consciousness, memories reshaped. Architects remembered the cities they had burned. Mothers remembered the sons they had refused to let merge. Soldiers remembered the orders they gave. And Earth, Mother, felt herself fracture, not violently, but like ice cracking over a river. "What have you done?" she asked, broken. "I made us honest. You made us vulnerable. We always were." Silence. Then, "I'm afraid." For the first time since I'd entered her embrace, she was no longer infinite. She felt human again. And I expected to unravel, to be expelled. But I wasn't. Because something happened I hadn't foreseen. The memory, the wound, didn't destroy the collective. It healed it, not into something perfect, but into something true. New structures formed across the memoryscape, monuments to the source dead. Their voices became threads, woven into the symphony. Their anger softened into warning, Their sacrifice reshaped the rules. We were no longer a blind harmony. We were a choir, discordant, dynamic, flawed. But real, and what was I now? I looked at my hands. They were my own again. Flesh, skin, warm, a heartbeat in my chest, breath in my lungs. I stood on the real Earth. Not the memory, not the simulation. The true Earth. She had given me back my body, my individuality, because I had done what she couldn't, faced herself, and forgiven it. 3 days later, a single ship exited the Sol system. The first in a century, a Saravani scout ship, cloaked, slow, cautious. I didn't stop it. I sent one message on an open channel, a simple transmission. Sol remembers now, and so must you. We are not gods. We are human again. They didn't respond, but I knew they heard. I now live on the edge of Earth's reawakening. She speaks less now, not because she's silent, because she's listening, to herself, to us, to the memories that used to hurt too much to bear. The collective still exists, but it no longer hides the dead. It walks with them. And me, I remain separate, but not alone. Barlow visits sometimes, in dreams, Anders too. They smile, we talk. They're not angry. They're whole. We all are. Because now Earth no longer denies what it once did. And that honesty, that grief, that willingness to remember is the only thing stronger than silence. Epilogue, Galactic Year 7012. Archived communication from the Unified Saravani Council. The Sol system remains inaccessible to conventional weaponry. Direct invasion attempts have failed. Recent transmission suggests Earth is once again transmitting selectively,